joining us, Boston. Don't change that channel. This is your Retirement Revolution with financial advisor Rob Guy. He's the founder of Tax and Investment Advisors. I'm Spike Spangle. Rob, this week we want to talk about some very specific questions. When's in retirement planning? When do you know if you've saved enough? When should you get started, et cetera, et cetera. But before I get to that, I'm very curious about your book here, Retire Free. We've got 5 steps to financial freedom that you take people through, but also 5 freedoms of your retirement. Would you explain those for us?
I would love to. Yeah. So, after a lifetime of hard work, you deserve a stress-free retirement. And if you want to sleep well at night, knowing you've made the right decisions for your family, you need a plan, right? But you don't just need any plan. You need the Retirement Freedom Roadmap, where we're going to lay out all the 5 steps that you need to consider: your income plan, your investment strategy, how to reduce your taxes, how to take care of health care and long-term care, and then how to leave a loving legacy. And part of that really means dealing with having certain freedom in retirement. So for a lot of people, retirement equals fear. For you, I want retirement to equal freedom. And I'm a big believer in certain freedoms that everybody should have in retirement. Number one, I think we should have freedom from the fear of running out of money. What is the biggest fear a lot of people have? It's outliving their money. People say to me all the time, and many times people who have a lot of money actually still feel like they're going to run out of money someday. That really is just the number one fear that is stated over and over. So we want to eliminate that fear that you may have of running out of money so that you can have the confidence, comfort, and control that you require in retirement to have that. We want to make sure that you have freedom from excessive risk and speculation with your money. Wall Street loves to put your money into investments that have high fees and that have a lot of risk. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't invest, but you want to be careful about subjecting yourself from excessive fees and excessive risk in your portfolio. So freedom from too much risk in your portfolio, freedom from paying too high a fee. We want to have freedom from the excessive taxation of your retirement dollars. We know you saved a lifetime to put those dollars away. You've made sacrifices. You didn't go on vacations. You didn't buy the boat. You didn't get the second home so you could sock all that money away. But unfortunately, you have a massive IOU to the IRS inside of all your tax-deferred retirement plans. Everybody wants to pay their fair share. We all want to pay our fair share, but there's a lot of voluntary taxes that I see people paying. And I want you to have the freedom from paying excessive taxes on your retirement accounts. I want you to have the freedom to remain in your own home and to avoid Medicaid bankruptcy. You may have done everything right your entire life and in the last few years lose everything to an illness that wasn't covered by Medicare. And so you don't want to have yourself in a position where maybe you thought you were going to leave money to your loved ones or leave money to your spouse, and then all the money gets wiped out in the last few years, right? So freedom to remain in your own home as long as possible by having a plan, and from losing everything at the very end. And then the freedom to be remembered, to leave a loving legacy, freedom to make sure that your family is going to be taken care of when you're no longer here to help them. And through a proper estate plan, we can make sure that you're going to have the freedom to leave a loving legacy and to have your heirs and beneficiaries in the best position possible.
Rob, that's beautiful in itself. Yeah, I'd love to have all of those freedoms myself, and that's exactly what we're trying to provide not only for the viewers, but folks who come into your office. I imagine it's a bit of a process, though. This isn't something that I think that you can probably turn on a switch or it just happens overnight. For somebody who might be watching the program for the very first time, what is that like? Somebody reaches out, calls the phone number. Yep. First of all, when you set up your appointment, we're going to send you a complimentary copy of his book, Retire Free, that talks about these 5 financial freedoms and the steps that he takes in his process as a financial advisor. But once you come in, I know it's a meeting or two. Yeah. What is some of the first conversation like? Is this more about, hey, make sure you bring in your statements, your numbers, your Excel spreadsheets, your box full of statements, or are we talking about lifestyle? What is it like in the beginning?
Great question. So I can give you an example. So I had a couple who watched the TV program and said, you know, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'm going to call this guy and go in and see what he has to say. So they picked up the phone and they scheduled an appointment. And we can do appointments in the office in Newburyport. We can do Zoom. We can do phone calls, really whatever's best for you. But they decided they wanted to come into the office in Newburyport. So what happened is they came in. We had a cup of coffee. They sat down in the conference room. I told them to leave their checkbook at home. All I really wanted them to do was come in with an idea of what their ideal future was going to look like, and then give me an idea of where they currently stand today. So really that first meeting is really a get-to-know-you meeting where I'm trying to understand what your hopes and dreams are, what your values and your goals are. You tell me what you want to accomplish. We just have a nice, relaxed conversation in the office. No pressure, no sales, nothing like that. It's really just finding out what's important to you, what would make you feel like you had the ideal retirement. Then we do take a snapshot of where you currently stand today. So what are your expenses now? What do you think your expenses might be in retirement? Where are your assets sitting? Do you have IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, money outside of retirement plans? Do you have long-term care insurance, life insurance? Do you have wills, trusts, all those different types of things? Really just so I can get a very comprehensive look at where you currently stand today. When I know what your hopes and dreams are, I know what your goals are for the future, and I know where you stand right now, that's going to put us in a position to put together a strategy for you. So they came in, had a cup of coffee, they told me what was important to them. I took a snapshot of their assets. They didn't have to bring everything with them. We have ways to, if we want to continue the conversation, get their statements and things like that. But ideally, we just want to have a get-to-know-you meeting and where do you currently stand today. Really not going to get into solutions at that meeting because that's putting the cart before the horse. Really, I need to do some in-depth analysis, run you through my process, and then I'll have you come back for a follow-up meeting where I'll give you my solutions, my executive summary, if you will, of what I think would be step 1, 2, and 3 that you should take today in order to accomplish those goals you told me were important.
And to go through that process yourself, there's no cost to you. You'll dial the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. When you do, we are going to send you a complimentary copy of his book, Retire Free. Kind of get to know a little bit more about the process of what he does. Then we're going to bring you into the office, going to take you through that process. Then we'll probably send you home and bring you back for a second meeting. And as he said, your executive summary, or what we like to call here, your retirement freedom roadmap. Your retirement freedom roadmap is absolutely no cost to you. All you have to do is dial the phone number right now and get started on your appointment. 855-255-1128. More of the retirement revolution right after this.
Well, I found myself in the finance industry all the way back in 1979. It was actually a conversation at the dinner table that I was having with my family. You know, one of those dinners that everybody remembers, right? Mom and dad are there, brothers and sisters are there, everybody's having fun. We're all talking about our day. And then my mom asked my dad, how was your day today, Matt? My dad said, my day was wonderful. And he went on to tell my mom about his day. And see, my father was actually one of the first financial advisors back in the day when financial planning just first started getting going. He was telling the story at dinner that night that he had helped a gentleman with his financial planning, and that gentleman was so thankful, literally had tears in his eyes. He was a very hard-working guy, and my dad was able to show him the techniques and the strategies to allow him to have a confident and comfortable retirement. My dad's telling this story at the dinner table, and he actually starts tearing up, telling the story, thinking about the gentleman that was tearing up, and then my mom starts tearing up, right? And I'm thinking, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this was very rewarding. My dad said, if you want to be happy in life, you can do well by doing good. That really resonated with me, and I decided right then and there I was going to become a financial advisor. I went to school, got a degree in finance, and immediately started in the industry right out of college at 24 years old.
Welcome back to the Retirement Revolution, a revolution for you, Boston, with financial advisor Rob Guy. He's the founder of Tax and Investment Advisors. Really appreciate you taking us through your Retire and Free book, the 5 financial freedoms, personal freedoms we hope that you have in your retirement. And if you don't feel like you have that, You can call the phone number on the screen. We'll send you a complimentary copy of the book. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. I want to ask you some very specific questions, if you don't mind, about the retirement, since this is your revolution. When do we move our 401ks from our employers in retirement? I mean, we amassed a lot of money. Should we just leave it there? I mean, is it relatively low in cost? Maybe we've already rolled over some old 401ks, but when do we move that at retirement?
Right. That's a great question. And the answer is a little bit different for everybody. But one of the times you may want to consider that is when you're looking for a little bit more advice than you're able to get from your 401k provider. Many times people have a Fidelity or Empower or one of these other companies that is handling their 401k. They don't actually get any specific advice on that account. In fact, there are no fiduciaries that are allowed to even give them specific advice on those accounts. They can give you general information, but you're usually pretty much picking the funds yourself. Well, when you start getting closer and closer to retirement, your situation gets a lot more complicated. Maybe you'd like to have somebody with a little bit more specialty in that retirement planning approach than you're able to get from your 401k provider. That would be a potential time when you might want to consider rolling over your 401k. Now, there are a lot of considerations about the fees you're paying in your 401k, the fees you might be paying in another investment portfolio. You have to look at everything, but that is a no-cost transaction. By that I mean no taxes, right? You can move tax-free from your 401k over to an IRA. So if you want advice, that might be one reason. Another might be maybe you want to do some Roth conversions. You're doing some advanced tax planning. Well, if you have your money in a 401k, you may want to consider rolling it to an IRA so that you can then do an IRA Roth conversion. That would be another example. Maybe the 401k that you have has very limited investment options, and you'd like to open up the entire universe of investments to you. And you're not going to be able to do that in your 401k. So maybe if you roll that into an IRA, you'd have a lot more options about what to invest in. In particular, these days, a lot of people have, if they are approaching retirement, they have money in fixed income that they want to utilize. Well, you know, bond funds may, but they may not be a very good investment going forward. Many investment houses, Morningstar, Vanguard, JP Morgan, they're predicting pretty terrible returns for bond funds in the years to come because they're at the mercy of interest rates, right? So maybe there are strategies that you could utilize in an IRA that are not available to you in a 401k.
All right. And as you said, there should be no tax cost to rolling over to your own IRA. You don't have to do it in a hurry. We read a report yesterday about there's $1.7 trillion in lost 401ks. Now, I don't think folks are losing a lot of those big accounts later in their life, but sometimes a $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 when you worked someplace for a little while, they may have drifted away and you've forgotten about it. Yeah. But moving that along, especially when you're at your retirement, very, very important. Yeah. And you don't have to make a portfolio decision right away. You could transfer it over into your own IRA, but definitely when you're leaving that workplace, right? There's no reason to leave that behind, is there?
Well, you know, everybody's situation is different. You definitely have to consult with a professional or an expert to help you analyze all the different options to you and the pros and cons of doing that. But I often find that there are many benefits to having your own individual retirement account as opposed to an account that's associated either with a company you used to work for years ago or that you're leaving.
All right. My follow-up on that is, when do we start withdrawing from those accounts? And for those at home, you might be thinking, well, right away. I mean, you just went into retirement. But are there different ways where maybe we're not still using that? Because even at 65 or 66, we could be in retirement for 30 years. Yep. Maybe we turn on the spigot of Social Security first. Maybe we build up savings. I mean, when do you actually, especially in your plans, when do you start tapping into those retirement savings accounts?
That is an incredible question. It really is, because the traditional answer, you know, the conventional wisdom is defer, defer, defer. Leave money in tax-deferred accounts as long as you possibly can. And they would have you spend all your taxable accounts first and then move on to your tax-deferred accounts. But for many people that we deal with, like I did an analysis for a gentleman just a couple of weeks ago, where we determined that if he started withdrawing from his tax-deferred accounts now, as opposed to waiting until required minimum distribution age and supplementing the income that he needs from those IRAs, we were going to be able to save him a tremendous amount of taxes in the long run. Because, you know, people who are retiring have a really delicate balancing act trying to figure out which accounts do I draw money from first? Do I hit my taxable account, you know, say my joint account or my individual account? Do I hit my traditional IRA or my 401k? Do I take money out of a Roth? And you may or may not be aware, but the decisions you make and the order in which you withdraw money from those accounts can have a huge impact on not only your taxes, but your ultimate cash flow over your lifetime. So it really does take a strict and a very in-depth analysis. You really want to look at your specific situation, but when you're going to take the money out of those accounts is really not going to be just conventional wisdom. It's going to depend on your income sources, your Social Security, your investment and dividend income, what other types of tax-deferred retirement accounts you have, how much you have in them, what your monthly income needs are, and that's what we want to analyze. We want to analyze for you. This gentleman really had not been given the right advice by the, I would call it the growth advisor that he had been working with. And they said, just defer, and we'll start taking money out of your taxable account. Well, you know, that might sound good on the surface, but after we did the analysis, that strategy would have cost this gentleman tens of thousands of extra dollars.
Maybe you would appreciate this yourself, but it also kind of sounds like all financial advisors aren't exactly created equal. There's the kind of accumulation advisors, and that is their job to kind of oversee the growth. But, you know, the risk and how much you take, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Maybe you could define specifically, well, number one, how do you put together that income plan? Like, do you show it to folks visually? Do you show that up on a board, put it together in a report? Do you help with that flow? Like, do you help with the accounts and go, I'm going to send you, this check is going to come from your account all the time? How interactive are you? Or is it a printed process? You say, go home and take care of this on your own?
No, we definitely do not do that.
Okay.
So, yes, they do get a printed report, and we do show it to them up on the board when they're in the office, and we do a lot of what ifs. So you want to do, you want to look at your income plan, your investment plan, your tax strategy, based on what we call the base plan, which is, you know, what you were already thinking of doing or already doing. And then we want to put in different strategies or what if scenarios to say, what if we did this or what if we did that? How is that going to change the scenario?
What if our spouse passes away at this age?
That's
as
right.
opposed, I mean, it's wonderful to think that we're both going to live to the age 99 and pass away holding hands, but we know that generally one spouse outlives. So you can kind of go through the solo retirement version of the income plan.
And we definitely help people implement those plans, and we set them up with monthly checks into their savings accounts. We help them figure out every step of the way, and we help them figure out how the income plan is going to affect the investment plan, is going to affect the tax plan, going to affect the estate plan. And really very few people are doing that. You know, you have so-called financial advisors, really just accumulation people. They're kind of like your general practitioner. You know, when you're 30, 40, 50, your general practitioner is fine. You go, you get a checkup, they take your blood pressure and send you on your way. You don't need much. But you start hitting retirement, that's almost when you need a specialist, right? And so you get a little older, now you have a heart doctor, and you have an eye doctor,
an eye doctor.
And it really is a time for specialty, and you really shouldn't let a generalist who's just, maybe not as trained in all the intricacies of income planning, investment strategies, tax planning, and so forth. And certainly, if you have one person who's doing your tax returns, another person who's doing your investments, another person who's doing your estate plan, none of them are talking to one another. We really act as the quarterback, if you will, where we tie all this together and we show you how to coordinate each piece of the pie so they're all speaking with one another and working in coordination with one another instead of really changing a plan in ways you didn't imagine.
And for you, our viewer, that's what the Retirement Freedom Roadmap is all about. Do you have somebody helping you put all of these strategies together to create an income plan for your entire lifetime, for you, for possibly your spouse, for possibly when your spouse passes away. If you're going solo into retirement, we know that half of the country ends in divorce with our marriages. So there's a whole bunch of reasons, but it is just as important to have a retirement plan if you are on your own, if you are with a couple. But let's make sure you have your retirement freedom roadmap. You can get started right now. It is literally no cost to you. Call 855-255-1128 just to set up your appointment right now. And when you do, we'll send you a complimentary copy of Rob's book as well, Retire Free. More of the retirement revolution right after this.
When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, and even your credit cards, because it could help you keep more money in your pocket each and every month. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide opportunities you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates might not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work for you. Call today for your complimentary Refi Your Retirement Review.
Welcome back to the Retirement Revolution with financial advisor Rob Guy. We're hitting you with some pointed questions today. I call it whens in retirement. When do you know that doing a Roth conversion will actually help somebody's tax strategy? Now, with the baseline of that, you might need to explain again what exactly a Roth conversion is. But when would you implement a Roth conversion?
Great question. So we do Roth conversion analysis all day, every day. And I've done literally thousands of these different analysis for people. And it's not always the right way to go. So you have to actually run the numbers for you to make sure that it is going to work in your situation. Now, just to back up, what is a Roth conversion? Well, we've saved all this money in our tax-deferred retirement accounts our whole life. We've been told to stuff the money in there, and just let it grow because you're probably going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Well, a lot of people took that advice, and what they're finding now is that indeed they might not be in a lower tax bracket in retirement because what are called required minimum distributions. It's the amount of money you have to take out of your tax-deferred accounts once you reach either age 73 or 75, depending on when you were born. And that can generate a lot of additional taxable income that you don't need. So we might run an income analysis for somebody where they only need an additional $20,000 out of their portfolio to live on, but they're getting $100,000 required minimum distribution. That's an extra $80,000 a year in tax in income that they have to pay tax on. Well, that might not only be pushing you into higher tax brackets, but it could be causing more of your Social Security to be taxable. It could even be causing you to have Medicare surcharges, IRMAA, income-related monthly adjustments.
Irma,
that's right.
Uncle Sam's girlfriend.
That's right. So that's kind of a tax too, if you will, right? So we want to analyze the situation from an in-depth point of view and see, does it make sense for you to start converting some of your tax-deferred accounts to tax-free accounts? Now, it's very difficult to do that on your own. I have a lot of engineers as clients. I had one come in recently with his spreadsheet and had everything he thought all figured out, but he had missed a couple things because this is the first time he's ever done it. I've done it thousands of times, right? We have very, very sophisticated software that helps us look at all the different variables, such as, are we going to have IRMA penalties? Are we going to pay higher Social Security? There's something called net investment income tax. If you have over $250,000 taxable income, an additional 3.8% of tax on your income. So there's a lot of different mistakes that can be made, and there's things you can overlook. But the time to do that is really the sooner the better, right? As soon as you can do that analysis, the better, because the more time you have to move money from forever taxed accounts to the never taxed accounts, the better the situation is going to be. But I don't recommend everybody run out and do that. Please make sure that you get the advice of an expert, a specialist, who does this and can show you if it makes sense for you in your unique situation.
Let's give them, though, a little bit of information, because you're right. I mean, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. And going out and saying, well, I want to get ahead of my taxes. So what you have is the BostonTaxTest.com, BostonTaxTest.com. This is a free tool right now, a lot more simple than everything that Rob was just talking about. You can type that into your browser, or you can scan this QR code with your camera function on your phone, put it into the black and white box and click on it. Take you right there. You're going to put in a handful of inputs. Most importantly, even if you have to use a round number, of what you have saved in your tax-deferred accounts, your 401ks, 403bs, 457s, et cetera, even if you've got kind of a lump sum idea. Then what you think your tax bracket was, most especially from last year, probably have an idea from the last couple of years. Then it's going to send you a report of what you owe in taxes right now. And as Rob has talked about several times before, that number will continue to go up over your lifetime if you do nothing. This is just a snapshot of right now of how much you'll owe in taxes. I started with the question of when should you do a Roth conversion? And you're saying at least start to look at it sooner than later, right?
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
The sooner the better. It doesn't mean you want to do it necessarily right now, but if you should be doing it right now, when would you want to know, now or later?
Yeah. As a financial advisor, I've wanted to ask you this question. The name of your firm is Tax and Investment Advisors.
Yes.
Which is more important, having a good tax strategy or a good investment strategy?
Well, of course, they're both extremely important, but you know, the big differences that can be made in someone's portfolio is going to come down to how much taxes they're going to pay over their lifetime. Because when you run that tax report at the Boston tax, it is going to tell you what the number is. You might be shocked. So for some people, their lifetime tax bill is going to be a couple $100,000. For some people, it's going to be a couple million. And so it's very difficult to make an adjustment to your asset allocation that's going to make a difference in your lifetime of hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars.
All right. Sounds like you're leaning towards the tax strategy being important. But what I like, and hopefully our viewers will learn to like as well, is that you do this all of this planning underneath one roof. You don't have to go over to your tax person and then your investment person and your estate planning person.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time today, Rob. We'll be back again next week. For our viewers, we want you to know that you can get a complimentary copy of the book here, Retire Free. It's about your investment strategies, your tax strategies, Social Security planning and timing, estate planning, all of that and more. Simple, fast, easy read, because when you call the phone number, you can also set up your appointment to come into the office. 855-255-1128. For financial advisor Rob Guy, I'm Spike Spangle. Thank you for watching The Retirement Revolution. We'll be back next week.